Hey, second grade. Happy Friday. I hope that you've had a really great week. It was a short week this week because of the holiday on Monday, but here we are. It's Friday already. Geared up for another weekend. Today we're going to revisit the topic we started talking about on Wednesday, which is the Powhatan Indians. Now, on Wednesday, we talked about their life, right? We talked about what they did, which is like their occupation, where they lived, the climate that they lived in, the land that they lived on. And so he really talked about the Indians and what they were surrounded with, and what they did, their daily lives. What we're going to do today, which I'm really excited about, is we're going to revisit some of those topics. We're going to revisit their homes and their occupations, their forms of transportation, and we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the environment and how it affected each of those things and why they made the choices that they did every day because of the environment. And then the second is we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about how their world is different today than it was hundreds or how many years ago, back when they were the only people on America. So I'm really excited to revisit this topic. As you know before, like I said, I love talking and spreading information about Native Americans, and I'm really excited to compare how they lived versus how they live today. So let's get started. We're going to start by talking about their homes. Let's start with homes. Why did the Powhatan make their homes from trees, bark, and other natural resources? Well, we learned that the Powhatan live in an area of forests where there's lots of trees and different plants of all different sorts. So, do you think that their environment affected their homes? You bet it did. They used their environments to make their homes. The resources that were available to them were the ones they used to craft their longhouses. This is a 400-year-old drawing of an eastern woodland Indian village. Why might the Powhatan Indians build a tall wooden fence around their village? What do you think? Well, I think it might be to protect them. Maybe protect them from the wild animals or protect them from other tribes. What other reasons do you think? Today, American Indians now, Powhatan people today live in Virginia and throughout the United States in homes just like you and I. I told you that I have American Indian ancestors, even though I'm not Powhatan. People do not ride around in covered wagons anymore. We do not light our homes with candles or go to school by horse and buggy. Life has changed over the years for everyone in America. American Indian cultures have also changed, but one thing has not changed. American Indians still live in regions all across the United States today. Talk about their occupations again. Occupations are jobs. This week, we talked about how they were fishermen. They were great fishermen. How do you think the environment influenced this occupation? If you're saying that they lived around water, you are absolutely correct. Remember, we said that they had access to rivers and to the ocean. They fished shellfish and ocean fish and river fish. We also said that the Powhatan Indians were great deer hunters. What made deer a good choice for the Powhatan Indians? What do you think? I think that they had a lot in their area. You see deer in foresty areas, and a lot of you, when we were talking about the deer life cycle, said that you saw deer in your areas. Deer are common, so it made them an easy target. What other animals do you think they might have hunted? I'm sure that you guys are having some great guesses. These animals provided people with many resources, like materials, clothing, food, and tools. It is likely that most hunting was done in the winter months, just like we talked about before. And we also said that brush was sparse in the winter, and that's why it was done. Do you know what this means? It means that the brush was empty. So brush being like bushes and small trees. In the winter, they all drop their leaves. And this means it's easier to see, and that helps the hunters. That's why they chose to go out in the winter. But not least, we said that the Powhatan were great farmers too. Why did the Powhatan farm the land? Well, their environment was perfect for growing crops. They grew corn as well as beans and squash. They also gathered fruit, nuts, grain, and roots in the environment. Because there was a variety of different plant life, their environment provided them with a lot of different natural growing foods, like those fruits and nuts, as well as really great soil to grow things like corn, beans, and squash. Today, the Powhatan people live and work in Virginia and throughout the United States. They have a variety of jobs and occupations, not just hunting, fishing, and farming. American Indians have played a big part in growing our nation. They have helped build skyscrapers, fought bravely in armed forces, and served in the United States government. They are doctors, teachers, look at that, and great neighbors. So here we see two very famous Native Americans. One is an ice skater, and he skated in the Olympics for the United States, and the second is an astronaut, and he carried his tribal flag into space, and that is John Harrington. Awesome job to those people, but they aren't the only ones carrying really great and important jobs. We talked about Native Americans, how they lived in their homes and their communities back then and today. We've talked about their occupations back then and today. Now let's talk about their transportation. Do you remember how traditional Native Americans transported themselves or moved? You guessed canoes, you're absolutely correct. The Powhatans made dugout canoes by hollowing large trees. Now let's talk about how their environment affected this. Of course, they, like we've mentioned before, had tons of trees. Trees die by themselves or when they could be struck by lightning, and they also did cut down trees. So they used their natural resources or their environment resources to help in transportation. They also, we said, in addition to using canoes, fishing, and traveling, they wore moccasins because they walked a lot. And these moccasins were made out of animal skins. And these animal skins were also found in their environments. Today, Native Americans, and Powhatan Indians in particular, travel just like we do. They still walk, but they also have cars and they ride the buses. And this is a clip out of an article of them declaring, "We are still here." So in spite of terrible hardships, American Indians have survived and continue to make contributions to America, our nation's Indian roots. Today, we live in cities with Indian names, places like Roanoke and Chesapeake. 28 of our 50 states have American Indian names, from Alabama to Wyoming. We eat native foods such as corn, melon, and squash. We use Indian words such as raccoon and barbecue. Lacrosse, a popular sport, is even an Indian game. Our nation today has been shaped by America's first peoples. So I want to highlight here that a place that we all call home, Chesapeake, is actually an Indian word. We've also, I'm sure, used the word raccoon, which is an Indian word. And with this holiday weekend, this past weekend, I'm sure we've talked about barbecues. So Indians continue, or should I say, they shaped our world many years ago and continue to make great contributions through their current homes, communities, and occupations. All right, second grade, awesome lesson. You guys did a great job today. I hope that you guys were thinking. I know I left some open-ended questions in there. Just to use your imagination and to think, why do you think, how do you think the environment affected what they did or how they lived? So let's check in with our I can statements to make sure those open-ended questions didn't throw you off. First, I can explain how the I can explain how the environment affected the American Indians' choice of homes, occupation, and transportation, which we did. We broke down their homes and why they built their homes out of certain things. We talked about their occupations, meaning what they did as their jobs and why, or even to the point of like why they hunted certain things. And then we talked about their transportation. We talked about why they needed certain forms of transportation like canoes, and that's because they had water, and what they made it out of, and that's all the wood that was in their environment. So give me a check for that one. And our second I can statement is I can explain how American Indian cultures, like the Eastern Woodlands, respected and protected their environment and homelands. And just like we talked about before earlier this week, they really treasured their environment. They loved it. They looked after it. They were thankful for it. You can see in, if you're watching a movie that features Indians or a film, they had a really great knowledge of the environment. They had a respect for nature, so they loved the land and the animals. Even the ones that they hunted, they thanked, for helping them survive. And they treasured the land so much. They grew a lot of their food, from it. They farmed, and they had a really like wholesome, which is like a weird word, I know you're not used to it, like way of living. So they were thankful for everything that they had, even though back then they don't have nearly what we have today, but they were thankful for it. They were thankful for their environment. They were thankful for nature. And I think that's something we can learn from, right? We could be a little bit more thankful for nature and a little bit more thankful for our environment. I know some of us haven't really had the best chance to get outside lately because of this quarantine and staying home, but I know a lot of you have been riding your bikes. And next time you're on an adventure, you're going on a walk or walking your dog like I do every morning with Nash, or you're riding your bike, just say, I'm thankful for my environment. I'm thankful for those trees, or I'm thankful for the grass I get to play in. It's a pretty amazing thing. With that, I will let you have a playful weekend. So I miss you all. I love you all. Have a great, safe weekend, and I will see you soon. Bye.